My name is Richard Weir, and I'm the current chair of the Grow Your Own series, and want to welcome all of you to the 6th of our 7-class program on creating a productive, edible garden in the home landscape. This program is a part of the Texas Master Gardener program in Fort Bend County. We work in close partnership with Texas A&M's AgriLife Extension Agency, and for those of you who are new to us, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension provides research-based educational programs, outreach services to Texas communities through their county offices. We're fortunate here to be guided by our extension agent, Jody Taylor, who's the extension agent for horticulture, and Brandy Rader, who's our program coordinator. Both of those are essential to the work in our county and their work with us, as well as the master naturalists. I'd also like to thank my fellow volunteers who are in the room and out at the desk. We could not do these programs without them. They certainly make my job easier. And of course, I cannot forget Nancy Utek, who's behind the iPad there. She's my boss, so I have to say that it's in my contract. To learn more about any of our programs or learn about the Master Gardeners, if you're interested in becoming one, go to fbmg.org, and you'll find a wealth of information there. And certainly the Texas A&M AgriLife website has a lot of information that can be helpful to you as well. Couple housekeeping items. The bathrooms are out those doors and to the right. We ask that you silence your phones and keep conversations to a minimum. A link to this presentation will be sent out within a week to all those who pre-registered or registered today. That way you don't have to try and make screenshots with your phone of the slides. At the end, there'll be a QR code, and we'd love to get your feedback. We also welcome any ideas for future presentations that could be helpful for you in your gardening pursuits. In addition, after the class, for those who would like to, we'll be going out those doors to our composting area, and our esteemed presenters will be there to demonstrate what we're doing at the current time to create compost for our gardens. One thing about this presentation, it was supposed to be on fall garden preparation and composting. Unfortunately, the person who was going to do the fall gardening preparation was unable to be here today, so you get a lot of composting, which they have a lot of information, so you're going to be covered real well now. Our presenters today are Sam Guardiola and Clarence Gray, and these two master gardeners possess a deep knowledge of gardening practices that will be able to assist you in how you manage and improve your own methods of gardening and composting. Turn the page. The first presenter will be Clarence Gray, Jr. He's a native of Louisiana, where he attended primary, secondary, and post-secondary schools. He graduated from Southern University in Baton Rouge with a Bachelor of Science degree in microbiology. He also earned a Master of Public Administration degree from Golden Gate University in San Francisco, California. He served in the U.S. Navy. He was at sea at major shore installations and on Joint Command staff. He retired in 1995 with the rank of commander after 24 years of naval service. He serves as Assistant Sunday School Director for Outreach and Evangelism. He's the president of Brentwood Baptist Church Veterans Assistance Ministry, and he's, of course, a Fort Bend Master Gardener. He's married to Janice Yvonne Curry Gray and have two daughters, Stephanie and Melissa. Our second presenter will be Sam Guardiola. He has been a master gardener since 2011 and received advanced training in composting in 2012. He volunteers extensively in his community and regularly speaks to the public, gardening groups, and garden clubs on the topics of composting and vermicomposting. If you don't know what that is, you certainly will soon. Samuel is passionate about sustainable gardening practices and educating others about building healthy soils through organic methods. He's married to his wife, Karen. They share their home with 2 rescues, Simon the puppy and Ali the cat. So I'd like to present to you Clarence Gray.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. I tell you, okay. I woke up this morning. I mean, I normally wake up before my alarm goes off, but this morning the alarm went off, and I think I walked halfway to. I don't. If you like me, you don't put the alarm right next to the bed. You know? You just hit it and then let it snooze. So it's in the kitchen, man. I think I walked halfway to the kitchen with my eyes closed. Before I decided I better open my eyes. But it was a good start, and I was so happy. Certainly, thank God for waking me up and to be here. My whole purpose for waking up is to be here with you. Whole purpose. Okay. And we're gonna go through some slides here. I gotta admit, I think I'm getting a little bit weary of. I like PowerPoint. I don't know about you. A lot of you may use it in your work, whatever. But I'm in the future, Sam. I think I'm going to try to do a PowerPoint-less presentation. You know, because we depend so much on technology. But let me get started because you're not here to hear me. You're here to learn about composting. We need to ask the question: how many of you are composting right now? Just to show your hands. Let me look around. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. You probably are doing everything that you need to do. You probably didn't need to be here. So, but we're gonna just share a few ideas, a few things that maybe will help you be successful in your composting. Those of you who are not composting, I encourage you to do so. So I start that slide off generally with our presentation from Rudyard Kipling about his honest serving men. And so I kind of use that as when I actually do things, I always want to say the what, the why, the how, the who, those kinds of things keep me on track on whatever I'm trying to do. And so that's the kind of thing that I wanted to start off with. But let's move ahead with composting. We're going to speed along, but Richard didn't mention, but if you've got questions along the way, please ask. Lift your hand or whatever. Sam will be looking around. Somebody else will be looking to make sure we capture your question, okay? So questions during the presentation are okay. We're going to try to get through as much as we can. The beauty of it is we're going to go out to the compost bins, and you'll really see the work in action, okay? So, composting. Richard mentioned we'll work closely with Texas AgriLife, and composting is part of environmental landscape management system, okay? It's AgriLife Extension Service. It's an Earth-Kind program, Earth-Kind. And so you see on the slide, water conservation, energy conservation, reduction, fertilizer, those kinds of things are some of the end goals for composting, okay? Some of the end goals of what we want to share with you. Now, we probably need a little history because composting has been around a long time, but we still haven't gotten it down yet. We still are throwing a lot of things away into the garbage, into the trash that can be composted, that can be reused, okay? And so if you look at the slide, I don't know how many of you can see that. I hope it's big enough to see. but millions of tons of things that are recyclable can be composted, can be reused, and not going into our environment. 20% of the landfills, and believe me, landfills have a lifespan. So as much as we put in there, as the years move on, those landfills fill up, and pretty soon we'll be like New York. If you can remember the years ago, they had it all on a barge, and they tried to get rid of the trash, and they barge went around the country almost trying to get rid of trash. Finally, I think it landed in North Carolina or South Carolina. But you don't want to get to that point. So we want to recycle as much as we can because of the cost involved, and just because we want to be earth kind and we want to preserve our environment. So let's move ahead. What is it? Composting is a process, okay? It's a process of decomposing leaves, lots of things that we now normally would toss in the trash and in the garbage. It's that process, okay? Compost is not. Yes, question?
No, a little louder.
Louder, okay, let me see. Closer. Got a mic adjuster. Okay. Thank you, Richard. But it's a process. I like that word. It's a process. Okay. It's a process of decomposition. Good. I think I can hear myself. It's a decomposition process, natural decomposition process. If you go to a forest or a woodland or a green space, you'll see that happening naturally, doesn't it? Okay. Go to a forest, the trees are nice and green and low. Well, composting is happening at the ground level there. And so it's a natural process that happens, facilitated by microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, primarily, okay? So it's a natural decomposition process. And the finished product is what you want, okay? Well, let me back up and say, the finished product is you want that nice green plant, isn't it? That nice red tomato. That's the end product. And so what we're trying to do is show you how you can facilitate getting it. We've got some finished compost here, and you'll see some out there. But it is that rich, dark, brown, crumbly, soil-like material.
I thought we weren't allowed to use grass clippings because of fertilizer, you know, you put on your grass and all that. Pesticides. If you use grass clippings, what kind of grass clippings are you using?
Can you repeat the questions?
Okay. Question is, I thought we were not supposed to use grass clippings, right?
Correct.
Because of fertilizer and stuff. Okay, yeah. Well, the answer is yes and no. Grass clippings, what we get from grass clippings are the nitrogen sources, okay? And in fact, fertilizer, in some of the literature, you can add fertilizer to your compost, 13-13-13. You can add that compost. You want to heat up the pile. So you want the nitrogen source from there, okay? So the answer to using it is yes, you can use it. The other part of it, yes, absolutely, okay. Absolutely. In fact, I'll talk about that here in a second. But the downside, of course, is what you said. You may have weeds, you may have weed seeds, you may have other things in there. If you do a lot of herbicides, yeah, that goes in there too. So you're trying to prevent it. If you use a lawn service, that's something you got to be aware of. Because a lawn service, he doesn't just cut your yard. He cuts a lot of yards. And so you may be, you have to be conscious of that too. But yes, it is. I never discourage using grass clippings. I've got a friend over here who brings me lots of grass clippings. And we put it in our compost. And it will decompose. So I would not be fearful unless you as I mentioned, you have a lot of herbicides that you put on there, a lot of treatments, or if you're not sure, if you've got weeds, that kind of thing. But the nitrogen, yes.
How many fertilizer in my
He's my grass man. Okay. Yes and no. Okay.
Okay,
So
thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, but Sam has an example of what your product is. Yes, sir.
I was wondering if hot compost would kill the herbicides or whatever might be in it.
It can, yeah. Compost can get up from 120 to 140 degrees in the process. Remember, we're talking process. So in that process, it can heat up. And if it does heat up to those levels, then yes, it will kill even some harmful bacteria. It can do that. Yes, it will clear weed seed. Yes.
I don't think things like Roundup decompose in heat. I think they're, because they get in our water, they get into our, people's bodies are testing. There's all that litigation against those products. You got to be mindful of what you're putting on your grass and yard.
Okay. She's mentioning Roundup. Yes, sir. You had a comment.
I can address that. Most herbicides break down naturally, some of them quicker than others, and it largely depends on the amount of microbial activity in your soil. In your compost, you're going to have lots of microbial activity, and herbicides like Roundup or other broad spectrum herbicides, they'll break down pretty quick in compost within 3 to 7 days, depending on the level of microbial activity and the heat. So you're typically not going to get any residual. Depends on the herbicide. If you use some really regulated stuff, some stuff that's really bad, some of it has a longer residual time period. It's the same for pesticides. If you're using some pesticides in your lawn for chinch bug or something, those are typically going to break down, and the compost process is going to break those down, and you're not likely to have residuals in the finished product.
Okay. So yes and no. Quick. Okay. Thank you, Coach.
I have a question about the grass clippings. So I don't use pesticides or any of that on my grass clippings, and I do my own lawn cutting. I had read that if you're going to use grass clippings,
Yes.
in your compost, you should dry the grass first. And I don't have time for that. So I tend to just skip adding the grass. But could I not add it in as if it was like green matter, like vegetable clippings and stuff? Wouldn't it behave the same in the compost if I mix it in with a good amount of ground?
I don't dry mine either, but I think you can add it directly. Now, the question was adding grass clippings, and she didn't have time to dry it out. She's heard that you should dry your grass out, lay it out, and then dry it. I don't think that's necessary. I don't think so. So yeah, you can add it. But when you add grass clippings, the literature says maybe not more than about a 3/4 to an inch layer, because grass clippings will mat. Okay, it mats, and if it mats, it prevents moisture from getting in, rain, whatever that's needed for the compost pile. Okay, so yes, please don't go that extra step. Okay, composting. I mentioned already some things that we don't. Why we want to compost? Because of those things. It's earth-kind elements that we mentioned, reducing the fertilizer application, conserving water. All of those things are benefits of composting, okay? And decreasing the amount of waste entering in the landfill. That's a biggie. That's really a big one, okay? So I'm moving pretty quickly, but again, you can ask questions as we go along. It is a process, like baking a cake, okay? So you add things together, okay? You mix all the ingredients, the leaves and whatever, and we'll tell you here in a minute how that should happen. And of course the process, because it's a process, it's a biological process. Decomposition is a biological process. Bugs eat my garbage, I think is one of my, no, this one says worms eat my garbage, but Bugs will eat your garbage and produce a good compost for you, okay? And that's why. And so compost, again, is a process, and we want to make sure we understand that that's what's happening, okay? There's a process. And it happens, okay? Don't overthink it. Those of you who are composting, you're probably doing the good. But don't overthink it. It's a natural process. Don't think that I got to have a whatever. Just do it, okay? Kind of like you can't do it wrong. Well, you can do some things wrong, but basically you can't do it wrong, okay? So it does happen, and this is just a picture of where we're going to try to go to after this. And at this site, at our garden sites, we do it over there. We'll go see it in a minute. Again, just a repeat, microorganisms, the bacteria and fungi primarily do the work. They're different kinds, but they do the work. They work together, okay? And they get the job done, okay? Okay, boy, yes, question?
So when you're talking about bugs, are cockroaches and maggots part of it?
Maggots? I don't think maggots. Never seen maggots. But I've seen roaches.
Okay.
And mealybugs. Yes?
Is it all right to use chlorinated water on my compost?
Chlorinated water.
Yes. I mean, because of microorganisms. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. I wouldn't get it. Hold on, let me get this. The question was, is it all right to use chlorinated water? Because he's thinking that it's going to destroy the microorganisms. Okay. You had a point.
Yeah, so you said there is a wait time for forming the compost.
Is it different from that question? Let me answer this question and then I'll get to yours, okay? The water. And city water is chlorinated for our own protection, and I use it. We use it in the gardens. It won't harm. Now, if you add chlorine bleach to the water and then pour it on there, you're asking for some trouble. But just using regular city water, your water from your hoses, you won't have an issue. Okay? No, sir. And your question?
Yeah, so I have two challenges with the compost. One is the wait time. So my question is like how I can expedite the wait time for forming the compost first. And the second is, I put this much material, when it becomes compost, it's like this much.
Okay. Perfect. That's what we want. So the question is, what's the wait time? How long do I wait? When I start this process, how long do I have to wait before I can get the compost, put it on my garden, and get my big tomatoes going? It varies. Okay. It varies. It can vary. I think a good thought is about 6 months. I would say about 6 months. Now, some literature said you can do it much faster, okay? Composting is a process. You can kind of force the process. You add more heat, add more nitrogen, and more air. Yeah, you can force the process, but I think a good 6 months, 6 to 9 months. The theory that I hear is about you compost for the fall, in the fall for your spring garden, or for the spring for your fall garden, okay? So you're giving it time, It's a process. The bugs, microorganisms, little guys, they don't eat fast. So they've got to break down those materials, okay? We didn't mention, and I don't know why I got to that question slide so quick, but the composting is an organic process, and you need several elements, but two main elements is you need carbon and you need nitrogen. That's what the bugs use. Carbon, they eat carbon and nitrogen. Nitrogen sources, or we call it green sources. So grass is nitrogen source, okay? Leaves, garden waste, the apple peels and pear peels that you use when you eat your fruit, all considered green sources, okay? Brown sources. Yes, leaves. Lots of leaves. Leaves are great brown sources, but also small twigs. You can use small twigs, but don't use logs in your compost. Cardboard, newspaper, straw, pine straw, all of those things are considered brown sources. Here's one for you. What do you think coffee grounds is?
Ground up nuts.
Green. It's considered green, okay? Even though it's brown, it's considered green because of some nitrogen, the nitrogen that it provides, okay? But all I'm saying is that you make those combinations. Now, the literature says you need about 40% brown to about 10% green. So more brown, more carbon than nitrogen. Just remember that. More carbon than nitrogen, okay? Sources, okay? Just remember that. They talk about layering. Don't overthink it. Just mix it in, okay? But you just remember you need more leaves. Now, you mentioned that yours goes, you start and it's big and then it goes little. Guess what's happening? Decomposition. That's why it gets smaller. Yes, sir. The literature says about 40% brown, it's about 10% green.
What's the other 50%?
Huh?
What's the other half?
Huh?
The other
What's
half.
the other half? Well, I don't know. That's a good question.
Mostly air. Water and airspace.
Well, that's a good question. But that's a good question. Proportionally, I guess the point I'm trying to make is more carbon than nitrogen, proportionally, okay? So I guess you could say 90-10, I guess, but proportionally, I just want you to know that. Now, a couple of things real quick, and then Sam's going to come up with a great presentation. A couple of things real quick. What happens if it's too wet? You don't want your compost too wet because it'll sour and it'll give off an odor, okay? And it attracts her. So if it's wet, if it's soggy or wet, you add more carbon, cardboard, leaves, whatever. Okay, add more carbon if it's wet, okay? If it's too dry, you have to add moisture, okay? Things to keep out of your, yes ma'am, question.
How often should you be mixing it or turning it or?
Excellent question. Excellent question. The question was, how often should you turn it? I turn mine every week. But literature said at least, at the very least, once a month. Very least. Compost pile should be at least, the very least, 3 inches, feet wide, and at least 3 feet tall, minimum. Okay, 3 by 3. Okay, minimum. Okay, it could be bigger, but minimum. Yes.
Do you find composting is more successful making a 3x3 plot directly on the ground and just starting? Or what about using one of those composters that you turn? If you put in some soil in that and then keep it in one of those rotating.
Okay. You're asking compost units, whether.
I'm asking which one is a more effective method, going directly into the earth and just having a dedicated area in your yard, or trying to be neat and tidy and keep the critters out by having it enclosed and having to turn it.
Okay. I'll tell you, the commercial people will tell you the turning, the bins and stuff will be the best. Okay. I think the natural process is better. I think it is better. Just if you've got an area, there's a variety. I'm sorry that we aren't able to delve into a lot of those different kinds of compost units you can have. You're going to see outside. There are a couple of ones that we use, that we have for demonstration. But you can use, if you don't want to put it on the ground or worry about if you got pets, you don't want, that. So if you can put it in a rotating bin, there are ones that you can buy on Amazon. We're not gonna talk about pricing or whatever, but there are various ones. You can have them on the tabletop. You can have various different kind of products, but I like the ground myself, okay? And actually, I have it in a bin, okay, a bin. Mine is like about 4x4 bin, and I use it. I heap the stuff in, my leaves, my cuttings, and whatever, and then like I said, I turn it about once a week, and to keep the process going. You should not have it too near a tree, okay? Because trees like the compost, and the roots will go in there, and then you'll have a problem. So find a spot in your yard, okay? The bins, the mechanical things that you mentioned are best if you live in an apartment or someplace where you don't have a yard, less space. That would work better. But if you've got a yard and you want to do composting, I like to do it out on the ground. Yes, ma'am.
I'll show you my compost tumbler pictures.
Yes, ma'am. Question?
So, talking about turning it, I've also seen and read that you should have like 3 different bins and then you keep switching them. So what's the difference between stirring it and turning it in one spot and when you're supposed to move it over to the others?
Okay, the question was having multiple bins, okay, that she heard the 3 different bins. The literature says yes, that's a good process because you can have something, one bin you can have a raw material, another bin you can have it cooking, and the third bin is where you put the finished product, okay? That's a good process. If you got enough yard for that, I think that's a great process. I only use one. Yes, ma'am. Well, let me just finish. But that's a good process. Again, we're talking process. You got one that's raw, you got one that's cooking, and you got one that's finished. So you can move the compost along, okay? That's the beauty of that. Yes, if you've got the space, we've got pictures on how you can build those. And they're very simple. But you can do that. That is a good process. Thank you for bringing that up. Ma'am.
Clarence, I'll just add, to add on to that, if you're using the tumblers, the thing with the tumblers is once they're full and you're cooking, you shouldn't keep adding it and resetting that ratio, that 60-40 ratio. So if you have multiple tumblers, that's good because you're not opening and adding to it. You're now tumbling it, and then you're adding to the other one, and then eventually you'll have the third that's ready to use. So that, unlike building a bin,
Mine's on the ground.
yeah,
And
if you have it on the ground.
one right now, but I was just waiting for that to get to a certain.
Yeah, if you have it on the ground, you can keep adding to it and mixing it and stuff like that, but the tumbler, it only holds so much and you don't want to reset it.
I tried that. I didn't care for the tumbler.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, your question.
There's a trick to it for sure.
Yeah, I was wanting to confirm that once it's cooking, right, you shouldn't continue to add to it other stuff. You should just be turning it. Is that correct?
In a tumbler?
Well, or the ground, right? If you've got an area that you're actually now cooking and trying to get to a certain temperature, you shouldn't continue to add to it?
I add
Or does it?
Yeah,
I
you
add
can
to
add.
my bins outside that are built up. I constantly add.
Yeah, I do too.
But
Okay, so it
in my
doesn't matter.
tumbler, once they're done, I don't. I'll do it.
Remember the process, if you get it in a heap, especially, and she was talking about, do you continually add to the process, to the compost bin or the compost pile, even after it's heated up? Yes, continue to add, because then, the compost process happens in the inside, so to speak, okay? And so that rich humus that's produced is happening on the inside. The outside might look like, oh man, what's going on? Nothing happened. But when you dig, okay, and that's what I do. I just spread mine out and I get down deep and I get that good humus. And then I use that and I screen it always and then I use it in the garden. But yeah, continue to add because the process continues to go, okay? So that's the answer to that one. I want to get Sam up here because I want you to hear his process for composting. If you got some more questions, again, I'm going to be around. I'll be around as long as we need to. We're going to go out to the bins here in a minute, but I'm going to let Sam come up. Any final questions that's burning that you'd have to ask of me? Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay, like when you clean out your chicken coop, to add that to your compost or not because it's waste?
Okay. The question was, when you clean out your chicken coop, can you add that to your compost, right? That's the question?
Or horse?
Yes, yes. Manure is good. Manure is good. Now, remember though, that especially horse, cow manure is, okay, manures are good. You can add those. But remember, they're very high in nitrogen. So you don't do a lot. Remember, nitrogen should be less. So don't use a lot of that into the compost. You gradually put it in, okay, because it's too hot. But the other part about cow manure is good. Horse manure, you got to be a little bit careful because, again, what do they do with horses? They might shoot them up. So I'm thinking about, you might not want, not so much with cows, but or chickens, but with horses, they may, the medications that they may give them might end up into their manure, and then you put that in your garden, and you might, in your compost, and you might destroy the bug. So just be careful from the sources, but it is a good source. Yes, very good source. Now, dog, cat, no, don't use that. Chicken is good, cow is good, horse. Huh?
Rabbits.
Rabbits. I don't know, Sam, what is rabbits?
Compost?
Yeah.
It's better than anything.
Better than chicken? Okay, that's something, I'm learning that. I didn't know that. I didn't know about rabbits. But I know, yeah, okay. Okay, thank you for those questions. I mean, you guys are great. And I think you're doing it right. Don't overthink it. Compost is not hard. It's very easy to do. I hope all of you are enjoying your composting. Sam, you're up.
Okay, so today we'll talk about just another way to get some humus for your soil and for your gardens and your plants, and that's doing it with worms. So if a lot of you, there was a bunch of you that compost already, but how many of you have ever grown worms to raise 1, 2, 3 maybe? No, 2, 3? Okay, perfect. Vermicomposting is the same thing. It's like what I like to refer to as a lazy man's composting because you don't really have to go outside in the sun to do it. You can do it in your house where you're air conditioned. It's pretty easy. The worms, unlike the composting in your pile where you're turning it, the worms will eat like salad, anything without the dressing or the oils. They'll eat fruit peels, apples, grapes, pasta, rice, anything that you don't eat, even if it's starting to get a little bit of fungus or mildew on it or something, they don't mind. They'll eat it. It's perfect for them, and it helps with the breakdown of it. And so it's a great way to amend your soil. So once again, it's part of the Earthkind and Texas A&M University. It's also one of the things that we teach is, why do you can go to the store and buy a bag of vermicompost, but I think we belong to Costco, right? And I think it's $20 for like a pound bag or something like that. You can also make it yourselves, which is, you're already trying to recycle and reuse everything anyway. This is just another better way to keep on with that practice. So there's a lot of earthworms that you can vermicompost with. We're going to focus on vermicomposting in the home, and we're going to talk specifically about the Eisenia fetida. And they're little worms. They're little bitty, skinny red worms. And they're not to be, their common name is the red wiggler. So if you're going to go to the store or you're going to go online, you're going to want to buy the red wiggler. If you, you'll also see that they have like night crawlers. That's probably the name that everybody's familiar with, or even the red worm. The red worm and the night crawler, those are the worms that are in the bins outside. They dig deep, they burrow deep. Because it's hot outside, they come up whenever it's time to eat and feed. They'll eat, they'll lay their castings, and then they'll burrow back down in the earth where it's cool. The Icenia fetida, the red wiggler, they don't mind being in a container. They don't mind being held, and you can touch them, feed them, and they do really well in a container because the container is cool, it's moist, they're in an enclosed location and you're feeding them, so they're happy. They're not going to try to escape. I have 2 of those bins, and they're just like a Rubbermaid bin that I made. And I have a couple of these at home, and they're pretty full, right? But the worms are going to eat whatever I give them, and they're not going to overpopulate. They're really fast growers. They have a lot of cocoons and they reproduce. But like if I don't feed them a lot, they'll just stay in this bucket, right? They're not going to overpopulate. And then if I ignore them for like, you know, an extent, I've done that before where I've just gone on vacation and I came back and ignored them, and they were gone. But these guys, I've had them for a while, and you can see, yeah, one fell out. But these guys are pretty happy, and they're fed. Now, I'll let you come up here and look at them before we head outside, and I'll walk you through how we harvest them, which is really what you're going after. Worms will eat, if I feed them kitchen scraps, worms will eat their body weight every day. So if I have, let's say that's an actual 2.5 pounds of worms in that bin, of just the worms, not the castings, not the paper bedding that they're in, I can give them about 2.5 pounds. What does that translate to? That's basically like the salad scrappings, veggie scrappings, and fruit scrappings for my week. And so like composting, like Clarence mentioned, he turns his pile once a week. I feed the worms probably about once a week. I'll just grab whatever's in the kitchen that I'm not going to eat, maybe some leftover salads or whatever. Cut it up. They like everything as small as you can get it. So I'll typically put it on a chopping board, grind it up, or chop it up with a knife. Just make it small. It's not anything that you have to spend a lot of time doing, but they like it smaller. I wouldn't give them like a big hunk of watermelon peel or apple peel or something like that. So worms, one thing, if you don't know anything about them, they don't have teeth. They actually have an opening. They have a mouth opening, but they don't have teeth. No arms, no legs. Their body is moist and slimy. That's how they breathe. That's how they get around. The little notches along the length of their body, those are musculars, right? Those are muscles, and they contract. That's how they move through their environment. And so I told you they don't have teeth. So a lot of times I'll take like cornmeal, or I'll take an eggshell and I'll pulverize it. I'll smash it up in a bag, and then I'll dump it in the worm bin. That gives them a little grit so that whenever they're eating, they can pass that food through their system. Their blood is red, and they do have 5 hearts. 5. That's a slideshow of them passing, the food through there, and that's how their muscles. That's how they contract and move everything through. These are the clitellum. So every worm has has both male and female, right? It has the ability to be fertilized and also to fertilize another worm. they can't do it by themselves though, so they have to they typically get with the mate, they'll elongate along the other worm's body, and then if they have the clitellum, that's how you know that worm is mature enough to mate, right? And so if it doesn't, then it's still a young worm. But what they'll do is that the clitellum, it'll secrete like mucus around the body of the other worm, and then they'll transfer the eggs, and then the other worm will fertilize it, and then they'll separate, but a protein surrounds that egg afterwards, and it forms that's where you get your baby worm egg, and then that's where the worm comes from. I've got some pictures of it, you'll see it, but that's like, we never see that activity. But that's the clitellum, it's right there along the body. The 5 hearts, and their digestive system, they do grind everything and pass it through, and that's how they break down the food and eat everything. What do you feed your worms? We've kind of already talked about that, but everything that you're already composting with, you can give to your worms. They love apples, coffee grounds, pineapples. I eat a lot of pineapples, so anything that I cut off of it, nothing too big, but anything a little small that I can chop up, I'll give to them. I eat a lot of bananas. They love bananas, green beans, lettuce. I mean, just anything I put in my compost pile goes to the worms.
Do they eat the banana peel?
Yeah, I do, as I mentioned, I do cut it up, so I'll typically cut it into like a piece about an inch wide, yeah, and I'll tear it up, throw it in there. You do have to bury it, so if you're gonna get a worm bin, if you're gonna start it, for all you beginners, I would tell you make sure everything you give to them, you bury. If you don't, you're gonna get like some fruit flies and all kinds of nasty stuff it'll swarm around in the bin, and then as soon as you lift the lid to check it out, they'll escape everywhere, and it'll be the worst thing you've ever had. So make sure you bury anything you give them. So, and in this worm bin, what I'll do is I typically I'll dig a hole, right, and wherever I'm gonna feed them, I'll throw my blueberries and strawberries in there, and I'll cover it back up with the bedding, and then I usually have like a sheet of newspaper. And what I'll do is I'll just soak this under the sink, right? I'll get it real moist, but I'll leave it whole, right? And then it'll just be a moist, and I'll just lay it flat over the top just to kind of help with any fruit flies landing on it and stuff like that. Yes. Yep. And then the bedding itself, okay, now you've figured out where you're going to get your worms from. What are you going to let them bed in? I work for a financial services firm, so we get a lot of Wall Street journals delivered to the office. I just go by the kitchen and grab near the trash can. I just grab like a stack of them every week. So I constantly have bedding for it. But if you don't have access to the newspaper, because everybody's digital, you can buy coconut core. They're like little bricks of the coconut hair, right? And they're about that big. You can get them on Amazon, Walmart for about $8 or $9. And what I do with those is I put them in a 5-gallon bucket, add some water to it, and let it just kind of break down. And I got a stick that I break it up with, and after a while they'll expand, and you can just mix it up, and then it's like soil. Now, what you want to do before you add it to your bin, you want to make sure that it's moist, but not muddy or not soggy, right? In other words, if you grab a handful of it and you squeeze it, you don't want it to be dripping water. You want it to just be like a wet, wrung out sponge. Does that make sense? Okay.
Do you shred the paper, newspaper?
So if I'm using it for the bedding, it's a good question. The question was, if you're going to use newspaper for the bedding, do you shred it? So yes, I would. So if I'm using newspaper and I'm creating bedding, then I'll rip it in strips like this, and I'll get it moist, right? And this rip's really easy, right? But then I'll wet this, and then I'll put that in there for their bedding, so they can get around in this no problem. And what they'll do is if, remember I told you I took a vacation for a couple of weeks and I stopped feeding them and stuff like that, they'll start eating their newspaper bedding after a while if you don't feed them, and then after that, then they start trying to escape and die.
What about the shredded white paper, like normal cooking paper?
The question is, can you give them shredded white paper rather than newspaper? You can give them paper, but just make sure if you're going to use it for bedding that it's moist and you rip it up, right? So, but I've used newspaper, white paper. Now, some people ask sometimes, well, what about the glossies? Does the glossy stuff on, or this is comics, right? And I've used comics paper for my newspaper bedding. They don't seem to mind the ink. I think the ink nowadays is mostly soy-based. They don't have a problem with that. Any other questions? Okay. What not to feed your worms? There you go, glossy paper. But don't give them, same thing with your worms that you're going to do with your compost pile. You want to add anything that's been with oil or dairy products. So I've given my worms regular pasta. If I have uncooked pasta, I'm not going to eat. But if the pasta has tomato sauce, or if I'm going to give them salad, if it was mixed with some dressing or something like that, don't do that. They don't like the dairy. You can give them anything plain, any pasta, rice. If it's moldy or whatever, they'll eat it. They don't care.
Just no grease, no oil whatsoever, right?
No oils, no milk, no dairy, no cheese. They don't like cheese. Just vegetables and salad and fruits is what I give my worms. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Will acidic foods, citrus,
Yeah,
live on the worms?
that's a good question. The question is, can you give worms citrus or acidic types of foods like peels? So yes, I have given my worms peels, and I do it in moderation. They don't like it as much because their bodies are moist. They don't like the acidity. So a lot of times I may throw a couple of tangelos or little peels in there, but if I have like a bunch or a grapefruit or something large, I'll just add it to my compost pile. I don't bother the worms with it. They like I mean, I'll tell you this, like after a while, those worms pretty much eat blueberries, strawberries, salad, and bananas. That's really about it. But they can eat all this stuff, but I mean, that's just the stuff I'm eating every day all the time for smoothies, and I put the berries in my salad and stuff like that, so I always have extras. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay, sure.
What about the pulp from juicy?
What was the question?
The pulp from juicy, so like if you do cucumbers or lemons.
So, yes, that's a great question. So, can you put the pulp from, if you juice smoothies or protein drinks, something like that, can you put the pulp in there? And I would say no. The reason is the worms don't like to be, they don't want that much liquid, right? They don't want to drown. Whenever I first started the bin, one of the first problems I learned, other than don't bury your food and don't leave it on top, was I gave my worms like a bunch of watermelon. I chopped up a bunch of watermelon, and evidently it was too moist. And so whenever I lifted the lid, they were all trying to escape. They were not happy because all the moisture was on the bottom of the compost bin, of that bin. Now, if you had and I'll show you, I have a picture of it. If you have one of those compost towers like that up in the top left or top right, with something like that, it's got a spigot where you can actually get out all the moisture and the liquid from the bin, and you can repurpose that and make like a compost tea. But just in that type of bin where I have, they wouldn't like it. Now, if you had night crawlers or red worms and you had them outside and you were doing worming in a bed, I would think, yes, you could put the compost or the liquid in that scenario. Yep, yep. But these, the red, remember we were talking about the Icenia red petita, the red wigglers, bin, they need conditions, they're like you, they need to be air conditioned, bed, they don't like the light, you know, if they got all that and they're happy, right? But they don't want to live outside, they don't want to be hot, they don't want to be too wet, they don't want to be too dry. Yes, sir.
So I fed, I had a den just like yours, I juiced, I fed them the pulp, they all died.
Yep, that's too much liquid. But you learned, now you're ready for bin 2. Yes?
How long does that process last, keeping that inside? I'm not understanding the process of doing this one or doing the outdoor one. So how long does it take to build up and what do? Do you just put the, does it reduce?
Okay.
Do you put the worms outside in the bed? I mean, I'm just.
No. So the question is, make sure I get everything. The question is how long is the process? What do you do with the vermicast when you get it? And what was there another one?
No, that's basically it.
Okay.
So you're not gonna have dirt like you have outside.
So, okay. So how long, right? Worms will, like composting, worms will basically, if you feed them, they're going to turn that, whatever you give them, they're going to turn it into vermicast a lot quicker than if you feed them once a month or whatever. And so when you have a finished bed or a finished box, a bin, you'll get, this is a finished bin, this is the result. I can usually get the worms to fill this box up in about 3 months. Now it's a lot smaller than if we were doing a 3x3 compost tumbler outside, but I mean, in 3 months' time, I'll have this to use. I can put it on my plants. I can put it on my yard if I just have an area where, you know, or I just need more space. I'm ready to turn the bin. I can dump it in the yard and start over. And then there was another question you had. What was the other question? Did you have another question? I
just wanted to know comparison to the being outdoors, the compost bin, and that one with worms.
Yeah, I mean, the comparison, I think it's, you know, I do both, right? So I have a bin outdoors. I'm going to get more volume from it. I'm going to be able to put like my grass clippings in there. I'll be able to put my veggies whenever, you know, now it's starting to get into summer. So a lot of my cucumbers are starting to not do so well. So when I'll pull those up and I succession plant, I'll put non-disease plants in my compost bin. But these, I can do this pretty much year round, right? Every 3 months. Inside, this bin right here is on a shelf in my laundry room. Yep. I have no idea. When I started this bin, I probably bought from Uncle Jim's, it was like, if you sign up on their website, they'll send you like all these emails. Probably 200 bins for like $20, right? Now, right now, I think you can get 250 for $39, but with every major holiday, Thanksgiving, Juneteenth, Memorial Day, they always run like sales like, hey, this weekend only, buy 100 worms, get 100 worms free or something like that. So it's just, you know, so plan on spending about $30 on worms to get you started. Now you can buy worms at PetSmart, red wigglers, they advertise red wigglers, and I think they give you a dozen in a little cup for like $4.95 or $5, which is a pretty good deal. I bought some from them before. Nobody here works for PetSmart, right? Okay. I bought worms from them twice, and every time that whole set of worms died. I didn't do anything different. you know, same thing that they do with them. The ones I've gotten from, there was a place before I bought from Earthworm Jim. They were called Texas Red Wiggler. I don't remember where in Texas they were, and his website's not active anymore, but I always had success with his as well. But the ones from PetSmart, I don't know what the deal was.
You can get Red Wiggler Academy in the fishing section. I looked on their website, they still show them.
Yeah.
30 for like $5.
Yeah, they're very cheap. Yeah, just make sure if you're going to do indoor composting, you get the Red Wiggler or the Icenia fetida. They're real small, and you can come up and look at these. You can't fish with these. These guys are like skinny. You'd probably impale them, sticking them on your hook. But yeah, I mean, the red worm, they're a little bit bigger, not much, but a little bit bigger, and then the night crawler. Yeah, those are the ones you fish with.
You got some questions?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm curious, so when you harvest, are you dumping the whole
Yep.
thing into, or do you actually take out the worms to start over?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the question is, all right, now my worm bin is full. I'm ready to harvest. I need to use my castings and make more room. What do I do? So what I do is I lay out I have a table, like just like a tailgate table, and I lay down, I just cut up a trash bag and lay it flat, and then lay the castings in piles on the table, right? The worms and I do it out in my driveway, the worms are sensitive to light. They don't like light. And so immediately when you lay it out in piles, they're going to go to the bottom of that pile. And what you start doing is you start sifting off the top and around the edges, right? And you just pull it back. And then what you're going to be left with is like a little clump of worms after you do all the sifting. And hang on a second, I have a picture. And there you go. So what you're doing is you're scraping off the top, scraping around, and you're just going to have a clump of worms left at the bottom. Use the castings, and then just put the worms back if you're ready to have your bin go, or just put them in a big bowl or a cup until you build your bin and you're ready to do it. Now, if you harvest today, I'd make sure you have enough room or enough time to build your bin and put them back in there. You can't leave the worms outside of that environment for like an extended period of time. You get one vermicast group and then you're done, right? You'd have to replace all the worms. Yes, ma'am.
So if I was gonna start a bin like that, how many worms would I need?
Like that?
A dozen?
Yeah, you could definitely get started with a dozen. Because if the environment's right and they're gonna multiply, you'll have 100 worms in no time. But if you buy them online and your only options are to buy, 100 or 200, that's okay too. They're not gonna overgrow that bin.
They just grow to meet the
Whatever their demands are.
resources they.
Exactly. The worms will grow to meet their resources that you give them, the environment, how much space they have. Exactly.
When you say build your bin, what does that mean? What do you start with?
Yep. So I will typically, I'll start with the coconut core brick or the newspaper, and you want to build a bed for them, probably of shredded paper or the coconut core, probably about, I don't know, what's that, 5 inches, 4 inches, about that deep. And then make sure it's moist, right? You don't want to put them in there with dry material. And then you can bury your worms in that. You build a little burrow for them, cover it up, and then I would cover it with a flat piece of moist newspaper. And then after I put my worms in there, I wouldn't feed them right away. All right, I'd let them acclimate for a day or two, and then I'd start feeding them. Now, whenever you feed them, it doesn't have to be like exact. I mean, I used to mark that bin in one corner with a Sharpie, and then I just remember to go clockwise just so I could remember like where I fed them. If I fed them here, the worms are going to go to where the food is, so they'll all crawl up here. And then when it's time to feed them again, I don't want to damage them by digging in there or whatever. So then okay, I fed them at the top, so I'm going to feed them this time at this corner, so I'll dig out, and then the worms will follow the food, and then vice versa. You just, feed them at a different corner so you're not disturbing them. But even if you do, and even if you do kill them, like by digging in there, or I used to have a spade, like a plastic garden hoe that I used. I just use my hands now, and I don't mind it so much, but I have like nitrile gloves as well. I think everybody has these for cooking. I'm still a nail biter, so I tend to use these for when I'm handling the worms, but yeah, I know I need to quit. Yes, another question? Yes.
Do you keep the lid closed all the time?
Yes, definitely keep the lid closed all the time, because you can get gnats, fruit flies, they'll land on there because they're looking for food as well, right? And whether or not you realize that you have it in your home and on everything anyway, and if you give them an environment where they can eat, and then they'll die off, and then something else will come and eat them. Yes, keep it covered. Always keep your worm bin covered with paper, right? And then keep your lid on. And then this lid, and that's the other thing. If you're going to buy a bin, you want to give them somewhere to breathe. And so I drilled a couple of holes in this lid, and then it's got duct tape on the back, and then it's just got a screening so that air can get in there. But that's it. I mean, it's not anything fancy at all. You can buy, I showed you the black multi-level. You can buy those, and they're great, but you can do it, just basic like this as well. But they'll get through. You'll get your end result. You'll get vermicast probably in about 3 months if you're feeding them and going through there, and they're alive and doing well. If the conditions are moist, they're going to try to escape. If the conditions are dry, you're not going to see activity. You're going to have to hunt for them. It's like, hey, what's going on? You're not feeding them. Conditions aren't right. But if you look in here, like right now, through nothing I've done, they're just doing really well. I mean, this is a good batch of worms. Any other questions?
Yeah, one more.
Yep.
So when you harvest your castings, I'm sure that there probably are lots of cocoons in there.
Yep.
So my question is, how do you harvest the cocoons for future worms?
I don't specifically look for cocoons, right? So if I see them, but like usually when I harvest and I lay out, I'm just like trying to get the castings. They'll reproduce and they'll like have more, right? I just throw them away and use them, and yeah, I mean, I'm not that friendly to the worm, I guess. The question was, do I use the castings for fertilizer for my plants? So I use them for an amendment for like my best plants, right? So the earthworms, this isn't enough to give me turf amendments, right? So, but I'll use this for spot it for my tomatoes, cucumbers, melons. Yeah, exactly. I'll put it into the soil before I plant, and then every now and then I'll top dress. If I have some extra, I'll just top dress the plant and, build a new one. But this is an ongoing thing, right? It's because the worms they're pretty quick eaters. Yes, sir. What was the question?
Can you cut worms in-house to help them multiply faster?
Can I confirm how fast?
Can you cut them in half?
Good. No, you can't. Can you? You mean do they regenerate and? No, I think you would kill the worm if you chopped it in half. Yeah. No, they're not snakes. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Can I dig worms up from my garden instead of buying them to get started?
So the worms the question is can you dig worms from your garden rather than purchasing them? You can if you're going to dig up worms and then create a new spot to do worms outside. The worms outside aren't going to do well in here because they're burrowing worms, and they like to be 50 degrees or more in normal conditions. Our summers are not like that. These worms, the Icenia petita, they like it 70, 75. They don't mind being in the bin in a limited space as long as you're feeding them and giving them everything they need. Oh, yes. And then here is the QR code so that you can do a survey on both presentations. I hope you learned a lot. I would encourage you to, there's a lot of composters here. I would encourage you all to try vermicomposting. It's actually quite a lot of fun. These guys, they don't try to escape the bin if the conditions are right. I have pets, I have a wife, and none of them seem to even notice the worms. So good luck.
I earlier failed to mention that we have a mock-up here of a compost trash can, but it's a mock-up of things that you can use to compost. It just shows you things that you can use to build your compost. The process, of course, ends up with a nice, great humus that you're going to produce. Okay, this is just a mock-up. So please, yes, sir, you have a question.
I forgot. You know, it's been better since the sun spot, or what kind of shaded area?
Good question. I would think that, and let me just, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. The question was, should the bin be in a sunny spot or in the shady area? Okay. I don't have an opinion on that, and I don't remember what the literature has said about, it's just, I will tell you that if you put it in like under a tree or near a tree, that's an environment that you want to avoid because, as I mentioned, the roots will go in there.
Can I add to that?
You want to?
Yeah, I'll just say that think about where it's convenient for you, right? Because if you're good sunny spot, but it's far from your kitchen, are you really going to go over there and build your pile and turn it? Or if it's far from your water source and you got to spray it with a hose to add water when you're turning it? Because the worst thing is like you start a compost pile and then you don't really turn it like it should be and it doesn't really break down, or it's far from your kitchen and you don't want to walk all the way out there and add to it. So if it's sunny but it's convenient for you and it's right where your water and your kitchen are, then yeah, I think you're okay with that, more so than like the shade from a fence might cause, right? You're gonna turn it and be with it because it's convenient for you.
Won't the sun help the heating of the?
It helps, but it helps, but I don't think to me, I have never had an issue with it, like composting and breaking down on the back of my fence.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
So, my mom gave up composting. She got so ticked off that everywhere she sprayed her composter, the little tomato plants grown. So, what do you gentlemen do to prevent volunteers?
You said that everywhere she spread the compost, she got plants, tomato plants. Okay. She puts lots of seeds that didn't get didn't get burned off. Maybe she, when she started to do it, she didn't let the compost go through the complete process. Okay. If you use it too early, you may have seeds that will germinate. Okay. So just try to let it completely compost as much as possible before you try to use it. Okay. As I mentioned, I like about 6 months myself. Yes, sir.
I started the compost pile about 3 months ago, and I can't seem to get it above 80 to 90 degrees. I've added carbon, I've added nitrogen, I've added water, I've stirred it, I've it doesn't want to get hot, so what temperature should it be, and how do I get it hot?
Well, the bins out there, we normally outside, we do cold composting. You don't have to have hot composting, okay? Composting doesn't have to heat up. It could be, it's a slow process, okay? If you want it earlier, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, you could kind of force it by adding more nitrogen. You might try some nitrogen, 13, 13, 13. Add a little bit more nitrogen, fertilizer, okay? You may be able to heat it up a little bit quicker and get it a little bit hotter. But remember, it's a process. You may not get it to that process. You may not get it to 120 to 140. Okay? In fact, it goes up and then it comes down. So it's not going to stay there. The compost is never going to stay very hot because those thermophils, they'll leave the compost after a certain time, and then another bug will take over. So don't worry about that. Just worry about letting it decompose to the point where you can actually use it. Okay. Okay. Thank you. You had another? Oh, the QR. Please use your phones. Okay. Please do the survey. It's very short, and we're going to do that. And while you're doing that, we're gonna get prepared to go outside because I really want you to see the bins. Yes, sir. Question?
Not a question, but I'd like to make a quick announcement.
Yes.
Before we go out to the compost bins. Thank y'all, Clarence, Sam.
Sure.
Great presentation, lots of good information on composting. Really appreciate y'all doing that. Oh, he wants me to use my mic. Can I borrow your mic?
Yeah, of course. There you go.
Thank you. I thought I was loud enough, Steve. Not loud enough for the recording. Okay, so thank y'all, and I won't take much time, but I want to let everyone know I put a few of these on some of the tables. They're mostly on this side, but I'll put this one in the back. We are doing, myself and our Waller County Extension Agent are doing a multi-county event on July 11th. This is the Texas Superstar Trials that we're doing in Brookwood. These trials are done every year throughout the state. We look at flowering plants and shrubs that are going to be potentials for induction into the Texas Superstar program. And we plan out a bunch of varieties and do trials. Master gardeners come out and they help tend to the plants and collect data. Well, you get to come out on July 11th and get some educational presentations. We have about 3 hours of presentations on various topics such as establishing ornamentals, results from last year's trial. We're going to have a presentation from one of our master gardeners on flowering plants for 4 seasons. And then you get to go out and take some flags and select your favorite ornamental plants. And we collect that data. Your vote helps to determine what might be the next superstar plant. So it's a free event. There's a QR code you can scan to register. So just look at this if you're interested in coming out on Saturday, July 11th. And be happy to see you all out there. And the last thing is, I know that we were initially going to talk about fall garden prep. So I apologize for not having that in the presentation, but I think this is really great. And compost is a really big part of that. Compost for gardeners is gold. So if you do nothing else, just add compost to your gardens. And if you have any further questions or specific questions about fall garden prep, I'll be around. You're welcome to come talk to me, and I'll tell you what I know and what I do. So thank you all for attending. Don't forget to go out there and see the compost bins.